What is up, everybody? Brian Mendler back in your life on another edition of the podcast. And I am super excited today to be joined by, we will call you Miss Chyna. Now, what's funny about this is some people might be thinking, like, Miss Chyna, did you win a pageant? Are you from China? Miss Chyna. But no. That's not the Miss China we got here. Instagram, I actually got to meet you on Instagram. You messaged me after the workshop that you saw me at in North Dakota. So where in North Dakota are you?
I'm in Grand Forks, North Dakota, so it's a big hockey town.
It is a big hockey town, big college hockey town. And I actually, when I was there last summer, got to tour the arena. I'm guessing you've been there, correct?
Amazing. Yeah, it's one of the big things to do here. I think it's probably more popular than even some like national hockey games that I've been to. It's just way busier.
Awesome. So you are a special ed gal. That is kind of what you do. That's your thing. I'm curious to know, like, what got you into wanting to teach special ed, and did you grow up kind of wanting to be a teacher?
No, I didn't actually. I did a lot of things growing up that it kind of surprises me that I didn't think of, maybe I want to be a teacher. I was a figure skating coach. I worked at like the youth center in the YMCA. And so I did a lot of things with kids, but I had just never thought, teaching is where it's at. I went to school, I was planning on going to business, and I was sitting in, I don't know, probably my sophomore year, first semester of college. And I was sitting in this class and I was thinking, wow, if my job is anything like this, my life is gonna really be a bummer. I hated the work that I did. I didn't enjoy it. And so I decided to take an intro to ed class and I really liked it. And that's kind of when I jumped into education. But ironically, I didn't plan on being a special ed teacher. The idea of ever being a special ed teacher seemed a little bit monotonous to me. I liked the idea of being with big classrooms and having the opportunity to think of these creative lessons with students like science and different English activities to just really get kids engaged. And so I never thought about being a special ed teacher. I graduated, I was like, gosh, I want to be in third grade. That was what I wanted to teach. And I ended up substitute teaching in a ton of different classes after I graduated. I was in middle school, high school, I was in a few special ed rooms, and I ended up being in a behavioral special ed room for a teacher that was about to retire. And so I was in this classroom and I was really nervous to be in there because I was thinking, what's going to happen if a kid has a tough day? We have a reset room in our classroom. And so I was thinking, I don't even know what to do. What kind of language do I use? How do I interact with that? And it came a lot more naturally to me than I thought it would. I liked being there for kids when there are really great highs, and then, sometimes not always the most positive things going on. And so, yeah, I ended up taking that position and I've been in it ever since, and I really like it.
What do you remember from that first room? I was actually reading that on your blog. You have that on your blog where you talked about that. What do you remember anything specific that jumps out that made you say, whoa, or like a moment?
Yeah. So I actually had been doing a social skills lesson with two kiddos, and I just liked getting the opportunity to talk about all of the challenges that happen in life that weren't necessarily academics, So talking about those things and then working through it. Because what ended up happening was just prior to our social skills time is those kiddos had a little bit of a scuffle and they they weren't too excited to be in that room. And so getting to sit down with them and kind of problem solve real life situations, the skills that they're going to need to be successful in life was so impactful for me that I thought, I think I enjoy this more than I would even, those creative lessons that I was hoping that I would get to do.
No question. I feel the same way. So it was my favorite thing about teaching self-contained special ed was I never had to hesitate, when sort of there was a thought, do I teach the content or do I teach the kid, right? Do I teach Shakespeare or do I teach please and thank you? And I always like please and thank you. I always joke with educators that, special one of the lines I use in my seminar is, do you kick out the kid because they got it? Do you kick out the kid because they got in the way of your content, or do you kick out the content because it's in the way of the kid? And special ed teachers in general kick out content more than we kick out kids, because in our mind we're there to teach the kid. That's my favorite thing about it.
Yep, I 100% agree. That's so important.
So what do you do now? So that was kind of how you got into it.
Yeah.
Take me to where you are now.
I am a K-5 special ed teacher. I'm like a behavioral special ed teacher. Our school does things a little bit differently where we each kind of take disability areas, so we're more specialized in those areas, and I love doing it that way. I do have kiddos that are self-contained on a leveling system, working their way back into the classroom, but I also have kids that are in more of an inclusive setting that come down for, like their service minutes. And so I like having the mix of both. I like having kiddos in my room that are self-contained, and I'm programming for them all throughout the day, and I'm helping support them, through those ups and downs. But I also like having kiddos that are in a more inclusive setting, maybe because they worked through the leveling system in my room, or maybe just because they just don't need that more structured setting. And yeah, it is awesome. It's super busy in my room. I have a lot of kiddos in there. There are 12 paraprofessionals that work with all of the different kiddos. And so, yeah, I'm really lucky to be doing what I do.
So you have 12 paraprofessionals?
Yeah, yeah. So, all of my kiddos are one-to-one paraprofessional support. So just due to
Wow.
behavioral needs, alternative curriculum, whatever it might be. Since all of my kiddos have behavior, in order to help them be successful, they do have a paraprofessional. And we're really lucky because in our school district, we have paraprofessionals to hire. We have paraprofessionals in our classroom. That's one of the things I hear about all the time on teacher Instagram and all over the web, is that there just isn't enough support for these kids. I mean, you can't expect a kiddo who has been in a self-contained setting where they have had a ton of support to go into a classroom without any adult support. So being able to have an adult transition them into that is remarkable. We're really lucky for that.
So okay, so if that's the case, then in my mind I'm thinking severe behaviors. What
Yeah.
what type of behaviors do you see?
Everything, urinating, spitting, hitting, kicking, biting, scratching, running, yeah, throwing up on purpose. Yeah.
And this is from little kids.
Yep, yep, kindergarten to fifth grade.
Can you take me through one specific kid that you've had and maybe a behavior and how you work through helping fix it or make it better?
Yeah, yeah. Let me think of a
Not to put you on the spot.
there's so many different ones. I'll
Yeah.
tell one that we kind of made it better, and then I'll talk about another one that is just one of those moments in life where you're like, wow, I don't even know how that happened.
Well, that'll
Um,
be fun because maybe then I can help with that. Let's cool.
yeah,
This will be fun. All
yeah.
right, cool.
It was
Tell,
so
tell.
fast. So the very first one was this little buddy that came into me at first grade. And so he's a little buddy that very much craved control in all aspects. And, there was a lot of things that contributed to that. Not only, was this child exposed to drugs, prematurely, but also, suffered from severe anxiety, a want for everything to be perfect. So this is a kiddo that needed so much control in his life and just didn't have it. And so things that we would see in the class is, when a teacher wasn't giving this kiddo, the attention that he needed in the moment to finish the word exactly how it should be spelt, things would be tipped over, chairs would be thrown, all different things. And it would escalate to the point where hair would be pulling, there'd be screaming, there'd be yelling, there would be complete meltdown. We talk a lot between the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown, like completely sweaty, crying, laying on the floor, and just so emotional. And I would always try and comfort this kid. I would try and talk to him. I would try and walk him through it. And I didn't get anywhere. Nowhere. No matter what I did, I couldn't get through to this kid. And so we would try calm down activities. We would try walking. We would try talking. And we ended up finding out that this kiddo, and I find this isn't super common, but he was just a kid that needed complete and utter space. So whenever he was frustrated, he had to be completely removed from everything. And he's not a kid that wants to be away from everything, He'll continue to argue, he'll continue to talk, and he'll continue to try And I think in his head, he's trying to problem solve things, but he's just not emotionally at a state where he's going to have a rational state of mind and he's not going to be able to work through those things. And so essentially, all we would do is we would just say, I'm not going to talk to you until you have a calm voice and calm body. And we just wouldn't engage. We wouldn't talk until he has a calm voice and calm body. And we eventually actually had to put a time limit on it. So right now we do 5 minutes, and it works so well for him. He would argue until he's blue in the face, and he would not stop arguing, and just acknowledging that we want to talk with him, but we need to see a calm voice and calm body. As soon as we see a calm voice and calm body, we just set a 5-minute timer. I have sand timers that we use all over my room. And then at the end of that, he's able to talk and he's de-escalated. So just giving him that space, but still giving him some control in what's going to happen is so important for those little buddies.
And so the control piece is him figuring it out on his own.
Mm-hmm. And as far as
It's
control,
you sort of setting the boundary. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
we give so many choices. So like, let's say we're in the classroom and we're starting to escalate. We're getting frustrated. So it's like, do you want to do your work right now, or do you want to go take a calm down break? We give so many different choices. Do you want to start with your writing, or do you want to start by going to get a drink of water? Different things like that, just giving him those choices throughout the day. Since he needs control and he needs to know, that we're both on the same page. We use a lot of visuals. I think visuals are so important. It kind of takes out that arguing piece for kids that like to argue as well. This might be a kid where I'm like, I give you your first reminder, I give you your second reminder, and I hold up my fingers while I'm doing it. Just because if I didn't do that, he'd say, you never said the second reminder, you never said the third. But if I have that visual where he can see it, it just keeps things consistent and it helps everybody know that we're on the same page. But giving those choices is so important for kids that need that control.
Yep. No question. It's one of the best ways to allow a kid to feel power and control, and that's two of the pillars of why kids misbehave. The other reasons, I boil it down to 5 reasons: attention, power, control, which is kind of the same thing, competence, right? Some kids are just naturally good at school, and belonging, some sense of belonging. And then there's a lot of like sort of sub behaviors that fit into those categories. But I always like to think of it as those 5 words are pipes to a well-hydrated person. Well-hydrated equals well-behaved. If a kid is filled in all 5 of those things, they will be well-behaved in school. If they're filled in 4 out of the 5, they'll be mostly well-behaved. 3 out of the 5 are still relatively well-behaved. 2 out of the 5 start to become your fence kids. A fence kid is when X is here, Y is a disaster. But if X is absent, I could easily get Y to behave. Y is your fence kid. They kind of go whichever way they're pulled. 1 out of the 5 exhibit behaviors, and generally the kids that I get paid to talk about are almost always dehydrated in all 5. And what you're doing is filling 2 of those with that. So I love it. I wanted to ask you, you kind of gloss over this. What's the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown?
Yeah, so a tantrum is essentially behaviors, more than one behavior, all kind of combined together to get something they want. So if the student gets what they want, then the tantrum will stop. Whereas a meltdown, if the student got what they want, the meltdown wouldn't stop. And I have kind of a write-up on my Teachers Pay Teachers of this that just kind of shows, the one wants adult attention, the other one does not want attention. The one, you start sweating, you might be crying. The other one, there isn't really any sort of those symptoms going on. So it's really interesting. And the only way that I can explain that when I talk with paras at school and we're kind of training and talking about it, a kiddo that has a meltdown, because I think they look so similar. A kid that has a meltdown, if you offered what they want, it'll still be an arguing match. They won't be happy. They'll still be frustrated. And so that's why we set in those boundaries where we say, we'll talk to you when you have a calm voice and calm body, because it doesn't matter what you present when a kid is escalated and having a meltdown, it's not going to solve anything. You have to wait it out.
But how does a teacher know that going in? Is there a way to know that going in, which sort of one it is? Because how you handle that as the teacher differs, correct? Like how you handle a tantrum differs from how you handle a meltdown.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it just takes a while to get to know the kiddo, but a tantrum from a meltdown, a tantrum, like I said, if you've noticed in the past that kiddo got exactly what they want and they're completely calm, that's 100% a tantrum. I would say pay attention to see If they're crying, if they're sweating, if they seem like they're pacing around and they're just getting really, really emotional in those ways, pay attention if they're paying attention to all the kiddos that are in the room or the adults in the room. A lot of times, if a kid is having a tantrum, they're making sure that you're paying attention to what they're doing. If you don't give attention to it, sometimes that tantrum will actually diffuse. Sometimes, they'll just kind of up the ante. It just kind of depends on the kiddo and what you're pushing through, I think. But yeah, I think that would be my main thing is pay attention to see if they are watching and noticing if you are paying attention. Because those kiddos that are having a meltdown, they're crying, they're laying on the floor, they're flipped over. They don't really give a rip if you're looking at them or not.
Do you so as a teacher, do you never, I won't say never, but I'll ask the question, do you ever, how do I want to ask this? Do you give in to the tantrum ever, or give in to the meltdown ever, and before you see calm behavior, or does calm behavior always have to predicate giving into the tantrum or meltdown, like giving the thing that the kid is flipping out about?
Um, not very often. If there's a situation where, let's say I said something, because sometimes I say I promised something to the kid and I don't realize that's what the kid is, having a meltdown about. And I might give in and say, you know what, I'm sorry. That was my fault. I forgot that I said that. So in those type of circumstances, um, most often we try not, sometimes you do it accidentally. Um, where you don't really notice that you gave the student exactly what they wanted. If a student is having a tantrum and they are wanting your attention, if you go over to stand in front of them from ripping something off the wall, you are giving in to what they want. Like they're getting that attention from you because you're now standing in front of them, paying attention to what they're doing. So I think sometimes we do unintentionally. And I think a lot of times that happens in a general ed setting because teachers are like, this can't be going on, I'm going to give
Yeah.
you the attention because you need it. But sometimes that just kind of fuels the fire and makes the behavior worse.
So what do you do in that moment? So as the teacher, if a kid is tearing down that sort of bulletin board, or something on the wall that's not theirs and it's inappropriate, and sort of your instinct is to go over and say, hey, cut that out, or knock that off, or stop. But yet when you do that, you're giving the attention that they're actually craving, which sort of makes them, in a weird way, want to keep doing it. What do you do instead? What do you recommend to a teacher to do instead?
Yeah, so in a general ed classroom, there's a lot of different things you can do. Paying attention first and foremost to why they're doing it. Are they craving your attention, or are they craving student attention?
Yeah.
If it's student attention and they're taking things off the walls, I just recommend for any gen ed teachers always have a set of books right by your door and just say, let's go for a reading walk, and you can go for a walk. Make sure, obviously, there's another adult in there that can kind of stay in there. But if that student that is tearing things off the wall just wants attention from his peers, as soon as they leave, that student is going to de-escalate and stop doing what they're doing. It's a nice moment where you can kind of talk to them about, hey, your peers are going to be excited to be back in the classroom, but can you tell me what that's going to look like? Can you show me how we have to act in order to be around our peers? So it's a nice talking moment. If it's more for teacher attention, not giving attention, drawing attention on all the other students that might be doing something positive. Wow, Jimmy, I see you're sitting at your desk. Wow, you picked up your paper right away. Maybe think about giving them another task that they can do. Hey, Jimmy or John, do you want to pick up all the pencils and make sure they're sharpened? Something like that, getting their attention away from it, but not giving in to, exactly what they're doing and paying attention to what they're doing.
Yep. And I think it's also really important that then the teacher notice, okay, that kid really does want my attention. So now I really do have to give them extra attention when things are going well. Right. So sometimes when a kid, literally, I would have certain kids, they would just walk in my room appropriately. And I would be right. Hey, great job walking in. I love how you walked in. If you walk in like that every time, good things are going to happen for you. You hear what I'm telling you? Great job. Great job. And like sometimes, my colleagues would be like, Brian, are you praising a kid for walking in appropriately? Isn't that what they're supposed to do? And I would say, yeah, like that's how it looks through the untrained eye. But really, what I'm doing is I have this kid who's desperate for attention. Think of attention like water. If they don't get it, they're going to die. And over here, I have this big bottle. Think about a bottle of Tabasco sauce, but instead of the word Tabasco, it says attention. And I picked that up and I absolutely doused the student in it right when they walk in. Why? Well, my thought process is if I drink an entire bottle of water right now, there's a good chance I can get through the next half hour, 45 minutes of my life without needing another one. And it's the same with attention. If I give this kid a whole big dose of attention right now, maybe there's a good chance they can go a half hour, 45 minutes without needing it again. And that's kind of what teaching is all about, right? Teaching is really all about getting through the next half hour, getting through the next 45 minutes, because it's like, all right, got through 45 minutes. Cool. Now it's recess. Cool. Got through 45 minutes. All right. Now we're doing something I love. Oh, got through. Yeah. Now it's lunch. Oh, now it's right. And bam, the day's over. And I often felt like if I could do that with a kid, usually they would behave, but it doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does.
No, I 100% agree. And then the thing is, too, is it doesn't have to be complex. It can be so simple. Like, wow, I'm so happy you're here today. I'm so excited to see you. What did you have for dinner last night? Those are like, I say those every day when kids get off the bus. Oh, I'm so excited you're here. Thanks for opening the door for all of us. That is so polite of you. Any little thing that you can draw attention to, kids just eat that up. They love that. And I think another thing with that is just celebrating any small thing. Like you said just for walking through the door, you really commended that kid. And that is so important. It can be something as simple as requesting what they want. I want a snack. Well, if they're not screaming and they're telling you, I want a snack instead, give them the snack.
Yeah.
And praise them for what they did. We want kids to be able to communicate and use their words to be more successful rather than having behaviors. And so anytime you can celebrate, why not?
And then you probably do this too, but as I'm just thinking when I would be the way I would then teach is I would say, by the way, let's put that on the board real quick. I want a snack. What's the subject to the word, right? What's the verb? And like you take what they do and what they say, and then you really mold that into your lesson. Do you find yourself doing that a lot?
Yeah, anytime we can. And I feel like there's things that happen all throughout the day that we can turn into lessons, especially for social skills. So it's really nice when it's like a situation presents itself and you can just mold it into a lesson because A, it's more applicable for the students, and B, why not when it's real life? We're teaching kids how to adapt and live in the real world. So why not, kind of adjust with those things?
And that's the key to motivation. The key to student motivation is showing the kid how it's in their best interest to learn something, right? Why is it not in my best interest but in your best interest? And the way to show a kid that is to use what they love in their life. I'm guessing you also have to then work with parents, and you probably see a lot of, I'll call it, interesting home lives from different perspectives. Do you notice that a lot of behaviors that you see from your kids stem from home?
Yeah, almost always. It's so crazy because if a kid is like having a really great week and the next week a meltdown's happening, I'm like, oh, they must be with mom, or oh, they must be with dad, or oh, I wonder what they did this weekend. Did they even get to eat this weekend? So then it's like, oh, did you eat breakfast? Do you want another oatmeal? What else can we give? But I think sometimes there's a little bit, it's kind of questionable for other teachers that don't know what goes on in our room because we're making popcorn and we're making oatmeal and I have cereal in my room, but basic needs always have to come first. And at the end of the day, if they weren't sleeping at night, they're probably going to have to sleep in school. That's one of my things too is would you rather have 1 or 2 really great hours with a kid because they slept 4 hours at school, or would you rather have 6 terrible hours where you didn't get anything done? If kids don't sleep, they need to sleep in school, as sad as that is, and obviously we do other things to kind of check in the home life outside of school, but however you can support those kids, that's so important. But home life has such an impact on kids. It's really sad sometimes.
That was brilliantly said, by the way, brilliantly. That was one of my favorite things that I've ever heard anyone say on my show is what you just said. Say it again? Would you rather have
Yeah, would you rather have 1 or 2 really good hours with a kid where you can get academics done, you're working hard, or would you rather have 6 really, really tough hours where you're not able to do anything with a kid?
And because, right, it's, and one of the other great things that I learned on my podcast was the word halt, which is hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Any
Mhm.
of those, that's the acronym for any of those four things. And when you see any of those, when a kid has any of those four things, then look out a lot of, and by the way, that's not just kids. I think that's
Oh
adults
yeah.
too, right? It's me, it's probably you. I mean, anytime I'm in one of those moods, I'm like, I need to eat, or I need to take a nap, or it's usually one of those things, and then you're good. So what do you do? How do you connect with parents? What are some ways that you go about trying to stay in touch with them?
So we do send like their point sheets home every day. I use an app where I send messages pretty much all the time. I'm
Yeah,
always messaging parents, I feel like, but
great.
obviously letting them know if something happened at school, but even just taking pictures for I have what's called a wow wall. So anytime a kid does something kind where they're working really hard, they ignore another behavior, anything like that, paraprofessionals, teachers, or other kids can write. They can fill out like a little certificate that we hang up on the wow wall to celebrate those kids. And so anytime a kiddo gets something on the wow wall, we take a picture, we send it home. If we're making different projects, I take pictures of them. I think it's so important not to contact parents just for the bad. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they just have such a bad taste in their mouth for school. So anytime you can let them know, like, wow, they had a tough morning, but holy, they turned it around. That is a huge success. That's really important to share those things. I know we get so busy and it's easy to only contact them when tough things or like questionable things kind of come up, but taking that extra literally 30 seconds a day to say, hey, I just want to let you know. And this is how a lot of the conversations go for my kids is, you know, John had a really tough morning, but he turned it around and had a great afternoon, because those are the things that we're celebrating, is that even though we had a tough start to the day, it doesn't mean that we can't change it and have a better rest of the day.
Yeah, and I think there's almost always a positive to the negative, right? I mean, I used to call parents, your son is one of the most assertive people I've ever met in my life. I'll tell you that. I mean, he's not afraid to speak his mind. He'll say what he thinks. And you know what? I got to tell you, in life, that's not a bad thing. In fact, I wish more people were kind of like him in life. Sometimes in school he takes a little bit too far. So notice how I start with the positive of that kid's actions, and then I'll take it to sort of where the negative lies with it. And I think you can find that, your kid is stubborn. I'll tell you that. Like, she has a mind of her own. There's nobody that's going to get her to take drugs. I'll tell you that, because when she says no, it's it. She means no. And
Yeah.
like, and so now that you got almost have the parent smiling on the other end of the phone before you go into a little bit of a criticism. And that's one of the rules, right? You can't criticize people in the world unless you compliment them too. Criticism in the world on its own, left unaccompanied by compliment, isn't criticism, it's abuse. I learned that once from an administrator. That was one of the best things I ever learned at a staff meeting. We walked into our staff meeting and she had the word criticism up on the board in big block letters. And our administrator looked at us. She goes, "You see this word? This word matters. You must be willing to criticize kids. If you're unwilling to criticize kids, they'll never get better." And then she looked at all of us teachers and she said, "And you all need to learn how to accept criticism. Because if you all don't learn how to accept criticism, you'll never get better." Then she pushed one button on her computer and the word compliment came flying in all around criticism. And she goes, "But don't you dare ever forget, criticism in the world on its own, left unaccompanied by compliment, it isn't criticism, it's abuse. That's it. Meeting's over." And she walked out. The entire staff meeting lasted like 2 minutes. And to this day, it was the single best staff meeting I ever attended. And I still use that frequently in my mind, but it's a great reminder.
I love that. I love
Isn't it
that.
good? And her rule was 3 to 1. So her rule was you try to do 3 to 1. Every criticism you have to do, if you know you have to call home to criticize, before you do that, you have to think of 3 compliments. And then going in, that ratio is going to be done properly.
And I like thinking about it ahead of time so you're prepared, because you don't want to forget those things. They're so important.
And a lot of times when we call home impulsively, our instincts and impulses take over. And a lot
hmm
of times that's not the best thing. What are some specific, do you have any like crazy home life stories. I have some like where just, kids that went through incredibly challenging things. And I think once in a while it's good for regular ed teachers and special ed teachers too, but for all people to kind of be reminded the world
Hmm.
that some of our kids come from.
And I so agree with that because I think about, so many of my kiddos are academically on grade level, but it's the behavior part that they struggle with. And so sometimes teachers get the mindset, they know better, they're smart, they know better than to act that way. So it's hard to have empathy for them, I think. And I just think, if I had a parent that was abusive, if I was locked in a basement and tied up with my sister and let snakes down there, I'd probably be scared, If I lost a mother, if I was scared whether or not I would have a home every night, if I knew my mom was constantly hiding from the police, if any of those things were happening, like even to me now,
Yep.
I wouldn't emotionally excuse me, I wouldn't emotionally respond to that very well. I would probably be more agitated. I'd be more emotional. Yeah, it's hard for me to understand that some teachers don't necessarily realize that kids are kids too. They have feelings, and those things are really challenging for kids to go through. Yeah,
Incredible. Did that one actually happen where you had
yeah,
kids tied in a basement where they let snakes
yeah,
down there?
yeah.
That made me when you said that, that
The
made my heart
snakes
actually
weren't
drop.
poisonous. Yeah, the snakes were not poisonous, but they were told that they were poisonous.
Oh,
Yeah, and they wouldn't have food on the weekend, no food on the weekend at all. So, then different tendencies come up like hoarding and always trying to find food and provide for you and your sibling. It's literally heartbreaking the things that happen sometimes. It blows my mind. And then I see this kid and I cannot I cannot believe how kind and caring they are about so many other people. And yeah, there's other needs there. Yeah, they have behaviors, but I'm like, wow, how are you such an amazing human for all that you've been through? Because I know that I don't think I would come out that same way. It is truly amazing.
one of my favorite lines that I use in my workshop is if you can retrain your brain to feel sad for someone instead of getting mad at someone. So I know for myself, there's two kind of Brians that live inside of me. There's the get mad at Brian. And when I get mad at someone, I react, I respond, I typically want to fight back. When I feel sad for someone, I back off, I tiptoe around, I look at things from other perspectives. And I think it's important that sometimes teachers, when you hear a story like that and then you see a behavior, instead of getting mad at the kid, feel sad for the kid. And that will take you to yourself that you like better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think those are just things that I know.
Right.
I just wonder what is going on at home that we don't know. And that's the thing is whenever a kid's having behavior, asking yourself, why do I think that's happening? What happened at home? Did they have food last night? Were they safe last night? Are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they scared? Thinking about those questions and if there's an answer to those will kind of guide how you'll respond.
And it almost when you hear the stories, it almost makes you annoyed at yourself that you actually cared about the homework assignment, or that
Yeah.
you were like, what was I actually annoyed? I was annoyed that this kid didn't do their work, and yeah, this kid was locked in their basement with their sister tied up, being told they're poisonous snakes, right? I mean, okay, sorry, my bad. Like, what was I worried about in this world? It gives you an entirely new perspective.
I know.
I texted you last night and I told you I got a message from a teacher, and I think we've kind of answered it as we've gone. But sometimes I like to read these, and you're a great person to help. So let's read this person struggling. It says, "I need your help. I have a barely 5-year old full of anger and aggression in foster care. I can only imagine the life he's lived. Being okay with having the second to last word is crucial to surviving with him, and I have found that making up a job for him where I can compliment him helps. Beyond that, I'm at a loss for helping him more. Big exercise riles him up more." I'm not sure exactly what that means. So maybe when he goes to PE, he gets more riled up.
Yeah, like heavy lifting, pushing things, like lifting things, things like that. A lot of times that can kind of bring kids down if they seem to be more physically aggressive, but sometimes it winds them up too.
Interesting. Okay. So he is possessive of his twin sister in our class and me. He still wants to keep me happy with him, even though his first response to everything is no, don't touch me. I'm not doing it. I'm telling foster parent on you. I can just see the year spiraling out of control. I want to do things that help him rather than harm him more. Help me remember. He doesn't seem to respond to talks about how to handle big feelings, not enough communication skills for asking him. So, I mean, she's obviously at a loss. I want to let you really kind of try to tackle this, and I'll help.
Mhm.
But I just want to just say to this teacher to start off that there's nothing more challenging. And so, whatever strategies or suggestions we give you, what I'll say is the only thing really you got is the ability to not give up on the kid. At the end of the day, that's really where you're going to keep your attention. Your whether what we give you works or not, make sure that you're committed to whatever happens. Just stay in the long haul, because a lot of times kids like this will try to push you away, and you have to outlast them. You have to show them, I don't care what you do or how you do it, I'm not quitting on you, and make sure that's your foundation. What do you
Yeah,
think?
so this is little buddy that sounds like you have something going for you as far as the fact that he craves that attention. He wants to please. Wanting to please is a big deal because you can use that to your advantage. You can use it, drawing attention to all the positives that he's doing throughout the day. Even if there's one negative, one time I did this in a classroom and the teacher looked at me like I was crazy, but I had this kid that was scribbling all over the desk, scribbling all over the desk. I asked the student to come sit down and pick up their pencil to start their work, and they were scribbling all over their desk. And I said, "Wow, you are holding your pencil very nicely." And then the student, I think, was so confused that that's what I noticed out of everything, that they actually wrote their name on their paper. And so, anytime you can draw positive attention, even if there might be a negative situation going on, if you can find something positive to come of it, that's something I would suggest. This is a little buddy though that's very young, and so as you said, it sounds like he struggles with communication. So giving him a way to communicate to be more successful, I think, is really important. What I do for kiddos, similar to the situation, is create some sort of communication cards. So it can be as simple as like, I want attention, I want help, I want food, anything like that. I want this toy. Um, I want to get to talk, whatever it is, having these communication cards, and he doesn't even have to say them. He can just point to the picture, you know, having that ability to communicate when you're really frustrated might kind of deter him when he's saying no, or different things like that. You could also have, I want a break space. So anytime you present a work, you present something he doesn't want to do, you prompt that child to use the communication cards. Can you show me which one? Which one? And he points, and that's his way of communicating. I would say implementing a visual schedule might be very helpful, so they can see, first I have to do this, but then I get this break. I wouldn't give up on different sensory tools or sensory input, because just because the heavy weight didn't work, lighter touches might. Maybe try a sensory brush, just brushing the child. I have a lot of kids that really helps calm down. Sometimes just simply kinetic sand or ore beads where kids can run their fingers through it when they're frustrated can really help just calm their bodies. Just making sure to show those as a tool for calming their body is important, and not so much as a toy. So we always talk about, wow, I can just feel my body, relaxing. I can tell that my breath is slowing down. Just using those tools to kind of calm the body. But I would say being consistent, having those visuals, giving the kiddo a communication card so they can use their communication even if it's not coming out of their mouth, and giving them choice with things. So do you want to start with your writing work, or are you going to grab a drink first? It gives them that power and control piece that kiddo is probably craving right now.
Spectacular. Very, very well said. And I think, the possessiveness over the twin sister, I think, like I said, it's framed as possessiveness. I think there's loyalty there. Like, I think you can look at, again, trying to look at every one of those negatives and figuring out the positive. What do you recommend for the foster home part of it? Like, because that's a real part of it. Like, that's so. Do you address that with the kid? Do you talk to the kid? Do you say, "Tell me about what's going on at home," or do you suggest certain things that might be going on and say, "Is this true?" How do you best do that?
I guess it kind of depends on how aware the kiddo is of the situation. You know, foster homes are a little bit touchy because sometimes kids think they're their forever home and they don't realize that it's only temporary. And so you have to be cautious with that. But I am always asking questions about what's going on at home. What did you have for dinner? What did you do last night? Did you get to play with your sister? Did you get to go outside? You know, and if they say, I play video games, what does that look like? I did this. What does that look like? Just getting them to open up kind of about what's going on at home. And then as far as foster care, that's hard because it's not a consistent. And as much as I would like to hope that every foster home in America is amazing and supportive for kids, the reality of it is that it's not. And so building a relationship, being the safe space for your kiddo is going to be so important. Especially throughout the year. If they know they can trust you, if they know, wow, tonight is going to be really terrible, but tomorrow I get to go back and I get to see Miss Johnson, that's going to help them push through the night.
Yeah.
It's a sad story, but just being their safe space, I think, is so important.
And when I had kids in foster care and I knew and they knew that they had been bounced around a few times, one of the things that I would sometimes say to them is I would address that and I would say, I would say the truth always. I think it's terrible that you've had to live in four different homes by the age of 8 or 7. You've been through more in 8 years of your life than I have in 40 of mine. And I want to be clear about that. Like, the respect level that I have for you will always remain up here. And I want you to know, whether you're living in the same place that you are right now next year, or a different place, or you're on your fourth place, I want you to know that I will still be in your life. I might not be your classroom teacher. You might be in another school. You might be in another state. You might be in another city. You might be in another state. And I don't care where you are. I'm going to find you. I'm going to call you. I'm going to make sure I'm a part of your life. And it was my, because that a lot of times kids put up these barriers around them because in their mind they don't want to get close to an adult. It's sort of like in their head, it's dangerous to get close to you because I know I'm going to get close to you and then I'm going to get ripped away. And kids with foster home experience, that where that's happened, they've got guards up around them, as they should have those guards up. They should be defensive. They should be wary of adults, right? It's the world they've come from. And I think by making clear to them that this isn't about this class for me, this isn't about this year for me, this is about you and I forming a relationship where I am going to be part of your life. And I think when kids see us as that, you see a whole different level of buy-in from them.
I agree. I agree. They need to know that you respect them, and not understand, but empathize with what they're going through because it is unreal the things they go through. And then, kids will bring it up. Kids will bring different things up that come at home, go on at home, oh, my mommy's boyfriend hits me,
Yeah.
or oh, this happened, or this person says this, and whatever it is, you always have to reassure that the kid is smart, they are kind, they are capable of great things still, and just letting them know that those things don't define who they are and that it's okay to feel emotions after those things happen. Because I think sometimes they think they have to put up this wall where they're so protected and they can't let that emotion out anywhere. And so letting them know that if nothing else, they can let it out at school is really important. Feel
And
good
it's
about
all it's all of us, right? I think all of us in our lives, we take out our biggest anxieties, our biggest annoyances, and our biggest frustrations on the people we love and care about the most. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes kids do that to their teacher. A lot of the kids that we're talking about, they don't have a safe place to unload. They can't flip out at home because then they get battered and beaten and abused more. So they come into school and they take it out on us, the teacher. And what happens sometimes is the teacher gets angry and annoyed and frustrated at it. But I always tell them, embrace it and look at it from the perspective of, wow, this kid trusts me so much. This kid cares about me so much that he's willing to lose it on me, because the kid's losing it. And as the adult, you have a choice as to how you want to view it, and how you view it tremendously impacts how you handle it.
Yep, I like how you worded that. We have the choice of how we look at things. The way we perceive everything is our choice, and that's a really good way to put it.
And I think one of the fundamental mistakes that a lot of teachers make when they're handling behavior is they're focusing really on the kid. And I think a lot of times the focus has to be on us, right? My mindset was always, if I change me, I can change anything around me. And
Mhm.
that was always the thought process was, and it's the same even with the strategies you suggested for this teacher, because it's like, if one thing doesn't work, instead of trying to get the kid to fix themselves, look at what can I do, right? Can I do this choice or that choice? Like, what can I offer them?
And that doesn't mean that you're a bad teacher. The fact that you have to change how you're already teaching, I think sometimes that's a hard concept to swallow. It just means that, that's a kiddo that needs a lot more support, and maybe the traditional way isn't going to suffice for him.
No question. These 45 minute to hours go quick. Is there any last piece of advice or a bit of information that you would like to share with people?
Um,
Well, tell me about your especially special ed, your conference,
oh, yeah, okay.
tell me
So,
a little bit about it. I'm interested. I want to be a
yeah,
part of that. How can I be a part of that? I
yeah,
love what you're doing.
we'd love to have you. So we just had one in July, and we will actually have our next one January 16th, 2021. Holy, that's coming fast.
Yep.
And so this one will be virtual. So essentially, Teach It Special is
Teach it
a
special.
professional development conference geared towards special education. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a special educator, but it can be anybody that works with special ed students, which is everyone in a building. So it covers all special ed related topics, though. So for the very first session, we had sessions on behavior, how to train or supervise paraprofessionals, how to write goals, and how to take data in a way that helps you be diligent, but also helps you be realistic with what you're doing. And so essentially, we had thought, there are so many PDs that happen. There's Teach Your Heart Out, there's Get Your Teach On, and these are all really, really great PDs, and they really unify teachers. But then there's kind of the SPED island where we don't really have that opportunity. And so Shanna, IEPs and Capabilities, and I started Teach It Special just with the goal that we could create a special ed community that would kind of unite all of us in a way that also unites teachers through other PDs. And so we'll be coming back in January 16th, 2021. And then next year, we'll actually start having our PDs in person. So
Yeah.
we're going to have it in a big major city in October of next year. So we'd love to have you join if you're interested.
I would love to. I would love to be a part of it, and however I can help. And I think it's a great idea. The minute I saw you guys promoting that, I was like, "Oh, that's such a great idea." Because I agree with you. I think that's a niche that's not out there. When you look at conferences, and I think another one that's not really out there is student motivation and behavior, like that,
Mhm.
like making that the focus. And if you look at professional development, you ask teachers in general what they want. That's what they want. They want motivation and behavior. Well, there's a million reading conferences, but it's like, if I can't get the kid to sit down and pay attention, then what's the difference? What strategies did I learn to teach them how to read? And so behavior and student motivation generally come first.
Exactly. And that was the thing too that we really noticed is during our conference and after, teachers were reaching out and they said, this was the best PD we've ever been to. We've been to other PDs, but this is what we needed for special ed. We
Yeah.
go to all these other ones and we don't get anything that we can actually bring back to our classroom. Where with this, we now have resources because we provided resources as well. We now have ideas. We now have other people that we've connected
Yeah.
with the teacher Instagram community. And so it was really impactful to see that. And so definitely only motivated us to keep going.
I hear it all the time. Like, I hear it when I get done with a seminar. I frequently hear that from people. Like, I've never heard from a special ed perspective. I've never heard from a special ed kid. Like, that's missing in so many areas. And I think it's why people take to my workshop, because you're hearing a perspective where you're like, whoa, I've never looked at school from that lens. And I think that's what I mean by thinking what you're doing is not, it's more for general ed. Special ed, you're preaching to the choir when you're talking to special ed people, right?
Mhm.
When you're talking to regular ed people, that's where that you're getting people going, whoa, okay, like now I see why I shouldn't have been so annoyed at that kid, who had their head down at their desk or had their head down at their table, in 10th grade social studies, even though the other 20 kids had their heads up, that one had their head down. You realize, what, and you said, would I rather have one good hour than 4 or 5 bad hours? You can take that to any amount of time, right? I would
Mhm.
rather have 10 really good minutes in class with a kid than 40 minutes that stunk, right?
Mm.
That was always my mindset as a high school teacher. You could go sleep for 30, but give me a hard 10. Like, we're
Mm.
going to go hard for 10. And for me, it was whatever number of time or minutes it is, it's still better to have the quality over the quantity.
And that's always kind of my goal for, with my teacher Instagram and now with Teach It Special is we can, as a special ed teacher, all special ed teachers know when you're in a school and you're working with a kiddo and you're working with a gen ed teacher, we can kind of try and shift a perspective, but it's hard when it's a colleague. When it comes from a different voice, I don't know why. When it comes from somebody you don't know and they're presenting, sometimes you take to it more.
Yep.
And I think that's just kind of a human nature thing, maybe a
Yeah.
pride thing. So just
It's like
having,
it's like your dad versus your uncle. It's like
yeah,
your dad will tell you something your whole life, and then your uncle tells you it, and you're like, "Hey, why didn't you?" And your dad's like, "I've been telling you that for 20 years. What are you talking about?" But it's I think sometimes people are too close.
yep, I agree. So I think being able to reach more people in that way kind of just helps us get into more schools and hopefully help even more of those kiddos that need it. So.
Well, let me tell you something. You are incredibly impressive, incredibly impressive. I'm honored to have gotten to sit here and learn from you today. And I would like to do more with you. I would like to collaborate more with you because I think you have an incredible amount of knowledge and wisdom. And I have a lot of experience in the seminar area. I've been doing that for a long time. So let's collaborate more. Sound good?
I'd love that.
It was awesome seeing you today. Thank you so much. So much. And so tell everybody where they can find you and get all your info.
Yeah, so I do have a blog, www.especiallysped, especiallyssped.com. And that has all of my links on there, but you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, all under the same username, especially sped, all together. I'm also on Teachers Pay Teachers. And so Teach It Special is also out there as well. That's www.teachitspecial.com. And then we also have an Instagram page for that. So
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, thank you so much. Don't forget to rate. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to download. Follow me on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube page. I'll be back with you same time next week. Until then, I say peace. I'm out of here. You are fantastic.
hey, that was
Very,
great.
very, very impressive.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
impressive. You know
That
your
was
stuff.
fun.
Yeah, you're good. You and I would be good. We could do like a show together.
I would
I,
love that.
you just get it. It's so refreshing to talk to people who just understand and can like transition smoothly from like one thing to another and like really can understand kids and see like 3 steps ahead. It's my favorite thing about teaching special ed. It forces you to do that.
I agree. And I think we're always problem solving and we're always, trying to see what we can do to be better. I mean, sometimes I come home and I'm like, man, I have tried everything that I've ever tried
Yeah,
before. So now what am I going to try? What
right,
else do I need to try
right.
to reach that kid?
But the fun thing about that is that you can come in. The fun thing about that is that you get to try and it doesn't matter because you're not going to make it worse, right? I mean, I used to be like, what am I going to do? This kid flipped out this morning. I can't make it worse. I can only make it better, And so my
I know.
daughter says she wants to say,
You
I want
get
to say
hit or you get kicked and you're like, "Really? Hi.
hi.
Are you
This is,
going to school soon?"
she can't hear you because here, hold on,
Oh, okay.
hold on. There you go.
Are you
Say,
going to school soon?
are you going to school soon? She said.
Yeah,
Yeah. Have a good day.
I will.
Say thank you. She's in first grade and
Oh,
she's in school full time. And where I live, the public schools are only in school 2 days a week. You only go
oh
two
wow.
days. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
still,
we're public and we're in all day, every day. And I'll tell you,
yeah.
it has been awesome. It's been so great to be back.
Is everybody wearing masks where you are?
Yeah. And
Everybody, all
that's
the
the
kids,
funny
everybody.
part I always joke about, I
Yeah.
think wow, kids are not going to be able to keep their masks on. And I think I struggle more than the kids do to keep their masks on. So,
For sure. I can't. It's hard for me to do too. Here, I gotta take a picture real quick. Hold on. One sec.
So you're gonna take a picture?
I'm gonna take a picture of her and me here. Watch out. Back out real quick. Smile. Ready?
okay, hold on. Let me scoot back.
All right. All right.
Can
I gotta run. I gotta get her to school. It was
I do
so
it?
good talking to you. What? Yeah.
Let me do it really quick.
Oh, here.
Okay,
Watch out.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. All right. Good seeing you. This will drop on Monday. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
And I'll let
We'll
you
be in
know.
touch.
Okay.
Bye, Brian.
Cool. Great job. See you later. Bye.
I'm still going to pajamas.
Yep, you are. Don't you have to go to get ready for school?
Yeah. Well,
I want to stop.
why is it supposed to stop?
Yeah, it won't stop. Hold on, let me text John. Why can't I get this to stop? Stop.
Uh,
Gaji?
I didn't do anything.
No.
It only shows me in the card.
I know.